Hi, welcome back to another video in our UniFi Network Easy Setup series for 2024. And in this video, we're going to be setting up VLANs. So if you want to know how to set up VLANs in the UniFi network, keep watching this video and I'll show you how. So here we are, and on the screen at the moment, I've prepared a table of VLANs that we're going to be creating. So the first one is the default LAN, which, as you probably already know, it's already created by default in the UniFi Network Controller. And in this default network, we are going to be putting PCs, Macs, laptops, printers, and all devices like that that we need on the default network and that we know are fairly reasonably secure as can be. We're also creating a wireless network called 10D. D refers to default, of course. Now, I've already created the Wi-Fi network called 10D, and of course the default network is already created. So the first VLAN that we'll be creating is for security, and in this we'll have cameras, doorbells, door chimes, network video recorders such as the UniFi UNVR, and also we'll be creating a Wi-Fi network called 10S. The next one we'll be calling automation for our VLAN, and that will have such things as home assistant, smart lights, smart plugs, Philips Hue, hub, smartphones and tablets to control these devices. So only devices that are going to be controlling the automation devices. And we'll also be creating a Wi-Fi network called 10A, of course, for automation. The next one we'll be creating is multimedia, and this will contain such things as satellite TV receivers, streaming devices, smart TVs, audio streaming devices, smart speakers, and we'll be also creating a Wi-Fi network called 10M. The next one down is PBX, and that's going to be containing things like voice over IP telephones, PBX boxes, which I'll be discussing in a future upcoming video. So hit that subscribe button so you get notified as well with the notify option. So moving on, we'll be creating a Wi-Fi network for this called 10P. Then the final VLAN we'll be creating is for guests, and that will contain guest devices or visitors, whichever you want to call them, such as smartphones, laptops and so on. And we'll be creating a Wi-Fi network for them, which will be called 10G. Right, so I hope you've got the gist of that, what VLANs we'll be creating. So now what we'll do is hop straight into the UniFi Network Controller. And here we have the UniFi Network Controller on screen at the moment. And what I've done is logged into my UniFi Network Controller, and all I've done is clicked on the gear or the settings icon, which is the gear cog icon, whichever you like to call it, and it's for settings. So it's clicked on the settings and it's taken us straight into the Wi-Fi networks. So what we'll do first is we won't create the Wi-Fi networks first, but what we'll do is create the VLANs so that we can put the Wi-Fi networks into those VLANs. So to create the VLANs, and by the way, this is based on running UniFi Network version 8.3.32, and it's the latest version in the month of July. I'm recording this video on the 26th of July 2024, so this should hopefully cover all new settings which have been changed since earlier versions of UniFi Network. And this 8.3.32 is the official public release version. So the first thing what we should do before we actually create anything is take a backup, which I always recommend you do before and after making any changes. So if you don't know how to take a backup, what you do is click on System. Then from the System screen, select Backups at the top, and then what you do under the backups in brackets configuration file is click download, and then with the pop-up window that says settings only, just click download, save the backup to where you want to save it, which I'm doing in the background at the moment. And then once you've done that, you can proceed to make further changes, and then once you've done those changes, take another backup as well. So going back, we're creating VLANs. So to create the VLANs, we'll go back up to the top to where we started, so Wi-Fi. So from the Wi-Fi option, select Networks, which is the second submenu option down. Then what we're going to do is click on New Virtual Network. Then when the screen pops up for network name, we'll call this security. So this is the second one down in the list, if you recall. So we'll call this network name as security. Router, leave that as default. So in my case, it's ROU01, which is the name that I gave to my UDMSE. So whichever one it is, just say UDM, UDMSE, or whichever is your default router. Then under IPv4, leave that selected, so don't change that. Then for gateway IP subnet, untick that box, and you'll see now that host address and net mask pops up as it was grayed out previously. So then move down to advanced, and for advanced change this to manual. So select manual, and then these options will become ungrayed out below it. As you can see, we've got VLAN ID 2, which is automatically generated. However, you can choose any VLAN ID that you want. I'm just doing these in sequence. So for the default one, it will be VLAN ID 1. So the default network is always VLAN ID 1 or 0, whichever, but those are reserved. So the next free VLAN ID that UniFi can automatically generate for itself is 2. So what we'll do is use VLAN ID 2. I know a lot of other people use 10, 20, 30 and so on, but it's entirely up to you which VLAN IDs you use. But I'm just going down my list from default, security, automation, multimedia, PBX, and then the final one for guest, which will be VLAN ID number 6. So I'm just working down the list up in sequence from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's hopefully clear. So with VLAN ID 2, we have the IP address range automatically generated, and as you can see above under gateway subnet, our host address is 192.168.2.1, so this corresponds with our VLAN ID being 2 and the IP range being 2 as well. So moving down, make sure that guest network is unticked, isolate network is also unticked, allow internet access must be ticked, content filtering, you may have a different option there depending on how you've set up your content filtering. Mine is currently set to none because I'm still in the process of setting up my UDMSE, hence why I'm doing these videos. So again, you might have IGMP snooping enabled. If it is, then leave it. MDNS, I'm going to untick this, and what it does is forwards multicast traffic between selected networks so that IoT devices can discover and communicate with each other when connected to different networks. So I would recommend unticking this unless you have or run into problems with multimedia streaming devices, then you might need to retick that MDNS box. So then once you've got those settings as they are on screen at the moment, click add. And as you can see, this has taken us back to our VLAN screen for networks, and here we have default and now security as our second VLAN ID. So what we'll do is go through and add the 4 more networks. So I'll quickly do this again by going into new virtual network. The network name is going to be automation. Router, leave that as it is. IPv4, leave that selected. Auto scale network, untick this. Then under advanced, select manual. VLAN ID is 3, so that's the next VLAN ID, and as you can see our host address matches it with 192.168.3 range, so it's a .3 range associated with VLAN ID 3. So untick MDNS, click add. Then the next one, click new virtual network again, and this one is called Multimedia. Untick auto-scale network, under advanced select manual, confirm VLAN ID is 4, which is correct. Untick MDNS, click add. So the fifth one, new virtual network, network name PBX, router is route 01 again, IPv4 selected, gateway IP subnet untick, advanced select manual, VLAN ID should be 5, which it is, untick MDNS, click add. Then the final one, new virtual network, guest. So guest in network name, untick autoscale network, under advanced, click manual, VLAN ID 6, so that's correct, untick MDNS and click add. And there we have our 6 networks, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, default, security, automation, multimedia, PBX and guest. So now what we can do is add our Wi-Fi networks. So to do this, select Wi-Fi, which is the option above networks, select on create new, and the Wi-Fi network name for this is automation. Now I've skipped default and security. The reason for this is if we go back, you'll see that I've already created default and for 10S and default for 10D. Now for 10S, what you would need to do for any already created networks is if you click on them, what you can do is then change the network so you can put them in the corresponding correct VLAN where you want to move them to. So once you've selected the new VLAN, just click at the bottom, for example, apply changes. So what you do is just click apply changes once you put them in the new VLANs. But I'm going to do this 10S later on because I have devices under security running at the moment, so I'd like to do it later on when I know that the devices are not going to be in use so much. So for the time being, I'm going to click cancel, go back to the list of Wi-Fi networks here, and then what we'll do is create the remaining Wi-Fi networks. So the next one down after 10S and 10D is 10A, so it's 10A for automation. So what we'll do is click create new. For the name, we'll call it 10A, and a password, make sure you put a secure password in there. So for network, what you need to do is select the corresponding VLAN. So for 10A, if you remember, this is going to be the automation VLAN. Now for broadcasting APs, I would leave that set to all, and then for advanced, select the manual option. Now what you can do is for the Wi-Fi band, if you know that you have devices in there that only communicate, say, on the 2.4 gigahertz band, then what you could do is untick 5 gigahertz, or if you have just 5 gigahertz devices in there that you know of, you can untick 2.4. So I know for the Wi-Fi band 2.4, for automation devices, I know that they only communicate on the 2.4 gigahertz for my devices anyway. So I'll be unticking 5 gigahertz. Scroll down, change the security protocol to WPA3. However, if you know that you have devices that won't connect to that network, or you try to connect them and they won't connect, then I would recommend selecting WPA2 and WPA3, which then provides backward compatibility with some older security devices or automation devices, or whichever devices you're using. However, if you do know that your devices do support WPA3 that you'll be putting into any of the VLANs, then just select WPA3 just to make the Wi-Fi network a little bit more secure. So once you've done the security protocol option, select Add Wi-Fi Network. Then proceed to click on Create New again, and then for this, the next one down is 10M. So 10M being for our multimedia network. Again, we'll create a password, and it must be at least 8 characters, which it does tell you must have at least 8 characters there. Then for network, select the VLAN that you're putting the Wi-Fi network in. So 10M is going to be in the multimedia VLAN. Select manual for advanced, and then again select the Wi-Fi bands if you want 2.4 or 5 or both, or even 6 if you have a 6 gigahertz enabled Wi-Fi access point. You can tick 6 depending on which devices are compatible with which Wi-Fi band. So just do a bit of research before you create these so you know which Wi-Fi bands to enable or disable. Hopefully that's clear enough. So I know that I've got devices that do support both 2.4 and 5, so what I'm going to do for multimedia is leave it at 2.4 and 5 ticked, then scroll down again, select WPA2 and 3 and select Add Wi-Fi Network. Then the next one is PBX, so click on Create New, name 10P meaning PBX, and again we'll type in a password, select the network, so in this case we'll scroll down to PBX, under advanced select manual, and for this we'll just select 5 gigahertz. As I know my telecommunications devices, so voice over IP telephones, do support 5 gigahertz, so we'll leave it just on 5 gigahertz. Security protocol, I'm not quite sure, so I'll select WPA2 and 3 and select Add Wi-Fi Network. Then for the final one, we'll click Create New, and this one is called 10G, as in for 10 guests. So the password, we'll create a password again and select our guest network. Then for advanced, we'll select manual, and I know that guests probably have 5 gigahertz devices now rather than 2.4, so we'll just allow 5 gigahertz devices. For WPA2 and 3, I know that my guests that support older devices, then probably select WPA2 and 3 for this as well. Then select Add Wi-Fi Network. So as you can see, we've got all our Wi-Fi networks created. So we've got the default for 10D, 10S for security, A for automation, M for multimedia, P for PBX, and G for guests. So that's all the Wi-Fi networks created to tie in with our wired networks where we created the VLANs for. So now what we need to do is allocate our wired devices to the appropriate VLANs. Now to do this, what you need to do is select the option for ports. So it's ports, which is those 4 little squares that look like ports actually. And as you can see, I'm hovering over it now. So select ports. Then this will take you into probably the all ports section. If it doesn't and it takes you into a specific device, then select all ports from the selection option here where I'm selecting. So you can have the router or the switch. So what we'll do for the router is select this first, and then this will bring up a screen with the ports that's showing on my router, which my UDM SE. Now as you can see, I've got the wireless access point plugged into port 1. So if we just click on that, it will bring up the settings for that port. Now as you can see, under native VLAN network, it's set to default. So make sure yours is set to default, and also make sure that the tagged VLAN management option is allow all, because if you don't have it set to allow all, or you set it to block all or custom, or have a different native VLAN, your Wi-Fi networks might not be able to communicate with the new VLANs created. So make sure that those are set to default and allow all. If they are, just click the port again to unhighlight it with the blue ring around it. And then what we'll do is select port 3 and port 5. So if you see, I've just clicked on 3 and 5 and both of those have put rings around them. So what it's going to do is change both of those ports at the same time. So what we're going to do is put the native VLAN network, change this from default and put this in PBX. So these are for my two voice over IP telephones. So what we're doing is moving them, the two ports, port 3 and 5, where my voice over IP telephones are connected to, and what we'll do is put them, specifically reallocate them to the PBX VLAN. So once you've done that, you can click apply changes, configure selected ports. So with the confirm, we'll just click confirm, and what it's doing now is moving those ports 3 and 5 to the PBX VLAN. Once you've done this, then it's best to restart your devices just so that they pick up the new IP address in their specific VLAN. So now that we've done those devices on there, we'll go to the switch. So to select the switch, where it says router at the top left corner, what we'll do is pull down the arrow, select switch 01. I only have one switch. If you have more than one switch, then obviously you'd need to do these switches one at a time, is best way to do it. So as you can see, we've got port 7. Now port 7 is, although it's not showing any device, I know it's connected to my smart TV. So what this will be moving into is multimedia. So we need to move it into the multimedia VLAN, and also we'll be moving the satellite TV box and the Amazon Fire TV stick into the multimedia VLAN as well. So what we can do is select all those three ports. So port 7, as you can see, I've already selected, then select port 8 and select port 9 as well. So 7, 8 and 9 all have blue rings around them. So what we could do for the smart TV, satellite TV box and the Amazon Fire Stick is move them into the multimedia VLAN by selecting native VLAN stroke network and picking multimedia. Then for tagged VLAN management, what we can do is select block all. What it will do when you select block all is it will only then send traffic for the multimedia VLAN to those three ports. Any other traffic for other VLANs will not be able to pass through that port. So once you've done that, select apply changes, click confirm, and then again I would select powering off and powering on those devices that you've moved into the corresponding VLAN. Then the next option, as you can see, we've got Hue01. This is my Philips Hue. So what we'll be doing with that is moving that into the automation VLAN to control lights and smart plugs and smart switches and so on. So what we'll do for that, as we're only selecting one device in this section, we'll just click on port 10, which has put a blue ring around it. So this is only going to move this one port at once. So what we'll do is select the automation VLAN, so VLAN ID 3. Again, for tagged VLAN management, we only want to allow it to have the automation traffic sent to it. So for tagged VLAN management, we'll select block all and click apply changes. Then for PBX, which is we've done that one. So the next one would be for the NVR, which is my UniFi UNVR, and that's port number 12. However, as I've said, I don't want to move any security devices at this moment in time. So what I'll be doing is moving that NVR on port 12, and we'll be putting that for the native VLAN, and it will be set to the security VLAN. So I'll do that later. Now for the next devices in the ports, so we've got NAS 01, that's my Synology NAS, and work 01, that's for my work PC which I'm on at the moment. So those two devices will be remaining in the default network, which they already are in at the moment. So what I'm just doing now is rebooting one of my telephones, which you'll see when I select the router again in the top left corner here. You'll see that the port 5 should appear again shortly once the device is rebooted. And we can check, and it should be in the new VLAN. As you can see, the device is now popped up, and if we click on it, you'll see that it's now in the PBX native VLAN. However, for tagged VLAN management, we forgot to block all. So what we'll do, once the device is restarted, as it has now, we'll select 3. So we'll select 3 and 5, which you can see have both got blue squares against them. And for tagged VLAN management, we'll select block all, because we only want to allow PBX traffic to go to those ports and not other VLAN traffic to go through those ports. So what we'll do once we've done that, so we've got native VLAN network is still the same as PBX, so leave that PBX, but for tagged VLAN management, select block all and click apply changes, and then click confirm. And then again, we'll probably just have to repower on and off the devices. So I can confirm that those devices have now powered back on for my 2 voice over IP telephones, and they have now been moved into the correct VLAN. So what I've done is check the IP address of the devices, and you can do this by going to the left hand side menu option, selecting client devices, which is the option above ports. Then from the list you will see that the devices are connected to your network, and you should see that they now have new IP addresses. So for VOI 01 and VOI 02, which are the 2 Grandstream voice over IP telephones, you'll see that they're now in 192.168.5 range. So they've been put into VLAN ID 5, which is our PBX VLAN. So they have been successfully moved across. So that's completes setting up VLANs. How easy it is to set up VLANs in the UniFi Network Controller. So in the next video, what we'll do is create corresponding firewall rules so that we block access from one VLAN to another, so that devices cannot communicate outside of their own VLAN. And also what we'll do is allow rules so that the default network can access every VLAN. So any device on the default network can access any other VLAN devices, which is what you want really, to control them from the default network. And what we'll also do is create some specific rules to allow access to, for example, a NAS. So we'll allow our security network to access our NAS to store any recordings on or something like that. So we'll be doing that in the next video, in our firewalls configuration video. So I hope you like this video. Keep watching, hit subscribe, and more videos are coming soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.